Hey there, and welcome to Brendy's Native English Podcast. I'm Brendy, your native English guide, here to help you improve your English confidence while understanding others, just by simply listening. This podcast is made for English learners of all levels, and you don't need to understand every word. Just hit play while you're doing the dishes, walking to class, sitting on the train. You can even listen to old episodes again. You might notice that each time you listen, you understand more than the previous time. The more English you listen to, the more English you hear in your daily life, the more your brain will get used to the rhythm, vocabulary, and natural flow. Each episode is independent, and in them I'll talk about two different topics. So real life topics, opinions, experiences, gossip, all in natural, everyday English. So why not make this podcast a part of your routine and let your listening skills grow with time? Are you ready for a great conversation? Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss future podcast episodes. And without further ado, let's get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this first episode of my native English podcast. Like I said, I'm Brendy, and I'm very happy to be able to talk to you all. It's a wild that we could do this, huh? Growing up, learning, I started with Spanish first and then Latin, followed by a few others. But growing up, I didn't have this opportunity to be able to easily go onto YouTube or easily go onto all these different applications and find ways to practice different languages. A lot of these apps were really in their beginning stages, and it's so exciting that it's almost a full circle moment, that I am able to do this for you. And I'm hoping that this will be something that will be useful for all of you. And I think maybe it's a good idea for me to start talking about who I am, yeah? So I'm Brendan. I am, as everyone calls me, Brendy. I am 29 and I have been a language teacher, as I prefer to say, language educator for over a decade now. Taught multiple languages from Latin to Turkish to French, and I might as well teach my native language, English. So here I am. And it's been so much fun learning not only how to teach, but learning about all the different types of learners, types of teachers, working with people with incredible stories. And, of course, I will not tell their stories. I will be sitting here telling my stories here on this podcast. But it's phenomenal just thinking of all of these wonderful people and incredible experiences that I've been able to have while being a teacher. One of those experiences led me to France. And in France, I've taught in a few places, in a few cities across France. And one of those experiences led me to this question of confidence, I wondered for myself, what exactly does confidence mean? It's a word that's used in marketing all the time, a word that you turn on the TV and sure you see it everywhere and on every ad. But the question of confidence is maybe seen as a byproduct of education, something that shouldn't be taught, but is something that comes out of a good education. And so I ask myself, what is needed for people to feel confident? In France, there's this, how can I explain it? There's this sense of not wanting to say that you're good at a language. One of the expressions, je suis nul en anglais. I am quite literally nothing, absolutely nothing. I guess worthless in this sense in English. And the question that I sit here wondering is why? In what world do we think that calling ourselves worthless in a language would actually make us better or seem better, or in a sense would help the conversation or add to the conversation in any way? And teaching here in France, I've realized that it is part of the pedagogy in a sense, not in a way to put down teachers. I think a lot of the teachers that I've met have been phenomenal teachers. I see that there is a lack of confidence, not only in the students who are learning the languages, but also in the teachers. you know, and having gone through the university system and everything, I've also seen that although professors may do their best to improve this process, to improve future teachers, to train teachers to be phenomenal teachers, or at least to get on their own 2 feet and have their own a good foundation in teaching, a lot of the people don't really have the experience teaching in different schools. It could be a lack of experience, or it could just be that they themselves don't have the confidence. And how can you expect to teach confidence when you don't have the confidence? So, all this to say that I've been very interested in this question of confidence, which is absolutely what shaped my pedagogy today, which shaped the way I teach and also the way I learn. We're going to talk about that. Lots of stories there. But it shapes a lot the way that I teach, be it English or French now. And what I've seen is there's sort of a framework, a set of rules or guidelines that we're supposed to follow when it comes to teaching. And those guidelines are generally in the form of a syllabus. Here are all the things that need to be taught by the end of the year. You have free reign, you do whatever you want. I wonder how teachers can talk about these things, how teachers can think about what exactly they're going to do, how they can approach the methodology, if they know what methodology they're going to use. Beginner teachers, wow. I remember my first class. Yeah. I had no idea what I was doing. Even with training from my teacher at the time, I had no idea what I was doing. No idea. But something that really helped, something that really shaped the way that I teach today was the student. In this case, it was my first student. Just seeing his difficulties and listening to what his difficulties were, listening to what was happening, and giving him that space to be able to express himself in the foreign language, of course, and also a little bit in English, allowed him to, it kind of gave him the voice that he needed. And that voice was perhaps, thinking back, it's perhaps the confidence that he was lacking. Maybe he didn't have too much of a voice in class. He, the teacher was phenomenal, I have to say. That perhaps there wasn't really a space for him to be able to express his autonomy, express his independence, express the language in the way that he wanted to. Being a professional trainer right now in languages, I see that there are a lot of people who come to me due to a lack of space or time to be able to express themselves. And so, although they come with brilliant listening skills, their speaking skills it's difficult for them. It's quite challenging for them to hold a conversation, to continue a conversation, to keep up with what I'm saying, especially the moment I drink my cup of coffee and boom, brrr, there, good luck, huh? Good luck. You know, I have a certain methodology in that it's a bit more open. We'll talk a bit about it a little bit later in the episode. But the question of methodology, and I wonder how many teachers, how many language teachers nowadays, particularly in France, have a methodology. What is it that they base their ideas on? Do they focus on the difficulties of the students like I did with my student? Do they focus on the group so that way they can have a higher success rate when it comes to exams, tests, quizzes? I, I wonder if teachers are actually cognizant of the various methodologies. I mean, there are hundreds of methodologies that are possible to be used, but perhaps the best methodology is not just one. Perhaps it's a mix of different methodologies that allow teachers to you kind of play around and see what works for each class. Oh, I know very, very well that from one class to another, even from 1 hour to another, it is not the same. You get a class before lunch, you get a class after lunch. Oof. Rest in peace, my teacher. This is for sure. And even nowadays, teaching business people, teaching CEOs, teaching people more in the professional and even retired areas of life, it's a very different aspect of learning. there's so much for teachers to have to understand, to have to go through, to reflect on, to process, you know? I've talked a lot about this with my friends, this question of what do we need in education in France? What is missing, or what do you think can be changed? And let me tell you, the first thing I hear is complaint, complaint, complaint. But it's a very strong but. However, these complaints always come with a story. They're always linked with a personal story, something that they experienced themselves, which is also bounced off of other friends, and it's even bounced off of foreign friends as well. Think about this. A lot of the stories they talk about were stories about a lack of time because there are too many people in the classroom. Some people had enough hours, some people didn't have enough hours to speak English. Some people were a bit frustrated because there was one person who was really good at English and the teacher relied on that person, or they didn't have enough practice in English. I think personally, one of the best classes I think I had was perhaps when I got into university and I started taking cultural classes in French, completely French. So basically, we do a bit of a flipped classroom model. We watch the movie or we'd read, whatever the chapter, whatever they wanted us to read was. We do that at home. And we come in and we'd have just a delightful conversation. We would go into so many different topics. To be honest, I'm not sure if the professor even knew what we were going to talk about. And it's that spontaneity that created a space for everyone to be able to talk, to express themselves, to bounce ideas off of each other, to really feel comfortable. Is speaking French despite errors, and when errors came up, could be big mistakes, could be small mistakes. When they happened, it was more of a moment for everyone to pitch in. So let's say, for example, what was a big problem I had? Oh, yes. Anytime I had to use the word what or that, God, I had no idea. I just do whatever word came out of my mouth, I did what I could, right? And one time, what the professor at the time did was she took that word, she put it into French, she gave me the first, the two different forms, the ce qui et ce qui et ce que, and all she had us do was she elicited, she took from the different students, what are different examples that you can think of. So at the time, it was a very big class, so she was writing everything, but we were very different examples using ce qui, using ce que, using different examples, write this on the board, and create examples a column with examples that worked, and a column with examples that didn't actually work. We basically she wrote the examples no matter if they were correct or not, and we had to put them into the correct or incorrect. And from there, it was, a light bulb went off in our heads, and we were able to see that with these examples, with the context, it allowed us to really think about why was this happening? Why is this one better in this circumstance, but that one not? We could have sat there and listened to her, give us a drone on, give us all these lengthy discussions and all these explanations about why it's so key or why it's so good. But I know that personally, if I had to listen to that, I would have fallen asleep. I don't know about you. I would have fallen asleep. Yeah. So anyway, methodology, huh? It's for me, I think it's a big part of the confidence question because when we talk about methodology, we're talking about how we interact with the students, how we interact with the um, the the students, the lesson. How do you create an environment, a space where everyone can feel like they're on the same page, or at least even if they don't quite understand yet, they can have an idea as to what's happening. Hmm. So all this to say, confidence has become the gravitational pull, if I can say, or the centrifuge of my teaching. It's the center focal point of why I do what I do. I'm so passionate about this idea of confidence, this question of confidence, and getting my students from point A to point B while working on their confidence and trying all these different methods, trying all these different activities to give them so many different opportunities in so many different contexts to work on their confidence, that's, well, for me, it's just exciting, you know? It's so nice to see that after so much hard work that my students put in, to see them succeed, to see them start to feel confident, start to see them start laughing, start to be crazy, you know? Sometimes I say that at the very beginning of every class, there are no limits, there's no judgment, and feel free to be crazy because you know that I will definitely be crazy. Oh gosh. Oh wow. Some of the classes that we've had, huh? But it's just the beginning. And I'm excited to help not only them, but also to help you on this exciting journey, a podcast to confidence in understanding English. So, moving on, this was a first part, a little introduction to me as a teacher, confidence educator. In the next segment, what we'll talk about is something absolutely completely different. So, stay tuned, go get a tea, go get some coffee, go get some popcorn if you want, and just relax. I'll be back in a second. Thank you. Hey, welcome back everyone to Brendy's Native English Podcast. I wanted to shift gears a bit from our last segment and talk about something very near and dear to my heart, something very important to me, and that is animals. Oh, I grew up with so many animals, very lucky to have so many animals. And now I have the opportunity to have two crazy little fur balls, two crazy cats. These two. Wow. You know, just to give you a sort of idea of how crazy these two are. I remember once when with the older one, both girls, I'm a girl dad. The older one was she must have been 5 or 6 months old. I was in a class, right? It's online class, it was during COVID. And I was about to start presenting. What does she do? She jumps up on the bookcase beside me, and at the moment I see her eyes, how big, how wide they are, I should have known that that was the beginning of the end. Oh, she just jumped from, I can't even tell you how many feet or how many meters that was, but it's from way at the top of the bookshelf. And right on my computer, what happened to my computer? It completely broke the screen. There's a large crack down the middle of the screen. It was wonderful because I had just bought this computer too, so thank you so much for that, Coco. And yeah, that was a lot of fun to explain to everyone. I couldn't present my project that was due that day. Could you imagine the normal excuse that people get? That's humdrum, everyday pedestrian excuse that everyone gives. Like, oh, my dog ate my homework. Now it's my cat jumped from a bookshelf, crashed my computer, and I don't have access to anything. So I lost access to everything, but thankfully a lot was in the clouds. It was okay. Man, I am the only difficulty is I'm so patient. And so she's older. The older one, Coco, she's older. She's about 3 years old now. Her birthday in a few days. The younger one that I got last year is, wow. I thought it was going to calm, the older one, Coco. I thought it was going to calm Coco down by having a smaller cat. Maybe a smaller cat to take care of, to love. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Not only is she crazier, but they now tag team to drive me insane. Every day it's something new. For example, when you have a kitten, normally they're supposed to eat different kinds of food that are richer in, if I'm not mistaken, richer in fats. It's things that adult cats probably should not eat because they could be at risk of gaining weight. And the only problem is that they both hated their food and they wanted to eat each other's food. So what they would do is they would both start at their respective food bowls. They would start eating their kibbles, eating their cat food. And the moment I looked away, they were watching me like a hawk, huh? Or I guess like cats, yeah. They were watching me like crazy. The moment I looked away, boom. all hope was lost. They snuck over to the other one's cat bowl. They were very, very, very coordinated. And I wasn't, all I could hear was just yum, 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 munching, munching, munching. That's all I could hear. And all they were doing was making sure they were eating each other's food. So, of course, the older one got really, really big because of this. It's not too big of a problem, for the cat to be big, but it could lead to some medical conditions. So I had to be careful. And the other one, she got so used to Coco, the older one, just eating, letting her eat whatever she wanted. She would eat her food. She would eat Coco's food. If I wasn't looking, she would come up and eat my food. Oh man. And now because cats are nocturnal, well, not nocturnal. What is the twilight cats? I don't remember the word for it. Crepuscular. Crepuscular, I think. Basically, they're late night, early morning is when they're most active. And they have started to wake up every single morning, and this has been going on for a while. I tried to stop it, but they wake up every morning at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning by fighting, of course, the play fighting they do and yelling at each other. And as soon as that finishes, then they start chasing. They all have what we call the zoomies. They're zooming from room to room to room, knocking things over, running around, screaming, meowing, play fighting. And then the moment I just can't take it anymore, the moment I lose all of my sanity, that's when they calm down. Right? That's when they calm down. That's when they say, "Oh, I think it's time for daddy to relax and to get some sleep." But this moment, I'm so irritated from listening to them just screaming nonstop for 20, 30 minutes. I can't go back to sleep. So it leads me to staying up for another 30 minutes, another hour, maybe eating a small snack, having something small to drink, a tea, maybe watching Hell's Kitchen. Like I love watching. It's a great show to watch, but very addictive. I'll be careful. And at that point, it breaks my sleep cycle. I've seen there have been some long-term effects because of this. I'm almost 30 years old, and even now I can see that the lack of sleep can have a huge effect, not only on my body, but also on the way I interact with people. The interactions I can have, the reflections that I can have, if I can actually reflect, if I can actually think. Maybe if you're thinking of getting a cat, just be well aware that they're crepuscular and they will definitely, definitely find some way to wake you up in the morning. Yeah. You got to find different ways to be creative. And that's what I've been thinking about these past few weeks. I've been thinking of new ways to help them not calm down, but at least move their craziness, their insanity to another room. Because it's nothing they can help, it's just a part of being a cat. So what I do is I got them a sort of, I'm looking at it right now, I got them a sort of scratching post, right? It seems so simple, a simple, simple, simple thing. A scratching post that I found that so it's a two-part. There's a bottom part which is, flat, face down on the floor, and they can scratch on top of it, of course. Then there's a small crevice, small hole in between the part on the floor, and there's a part that is pushed up against the wall, and they're connected by a screwed in piece of wood. So what happens is they go in and they start scratching, and then they look in the crevice and they say, "Whoa, look, there's something in there that I can play with." Yeah. You have to put a ball. It can be anything. It could be a ball, it can be a cotton ball, it can be, those arts and crafts, little cotton balls that you can put on, to create bunnies and things like that. It can be any of those things. Anything that will make them just sit there and pat with their paws back and forth. They love it. And let me tell you, that has saved me so much sanity. I'm able to sleep. People, everyone, listen, I'm able to sleep. It's Who would have thought that something so simple, so basic could have such a huge impact on your sleep? Hmm, cats, huh? Cats are crazy. And I was thinking about it as well. What if, you know, Cats are very smart. Yeah, well, let's be honest. Most cats are pretty smart. There are some cats that I question a bit, but we all love them. We all love them. And I'm sitting here sometimes looking at these two and thinking, what if these cats, and it's a crazy question, what if these cats ran the government? What if these cats were in charge of something major? I'd be afraid. I'd be afraid. I mean, to be honest, they're very smart. They're able to learn. One of them I take out and walk on the leash. So can you imagine? We always go outside and take a little walk around the neighborhood on the leash. He knows the way very, very well. The other one is I tried to walk her, but there's some cats that you just don't take out of their habitat ever. Man, this poor cat. I'll tell you the story. This we were walking, right? I had Coco on the leash on the ground, and the baby, Mabel, I had her in my arms because she was just terrified. She was shaking, her tail was tucked between her hind legs. She was terrified. So I'm sitting here wondering, wow, what do I do? What do I do? I thought, I'll just wait till I get there's a park nearby my house, so we'll see what happens. We'll take her there. I don't even get a minute down the sidewalk when this poor guy, this poor guy, he got out of his car. Coco went crazy. She started running one way. Mabel started scratching all over my body to jump off and run the other way. But the worst part was yet to come because the moment he closed the door, he went around to the back. He opened the back of his car. He opened the trunk door. And I don't know if he meant to do, I don't know if he did this on purpose, if he meant to do this, but this guy, man, he took his trunk door and he slammed that thing. He slammed it hard. And that was the end. Yeah, that was the end. Coco went running off in one direction. Mabel jumped, after scratching, ripping my poor chest apart. She went running, I mean sprinting. Not running, it was sprinting off in the other direction. And this is the part where I say she's smart, yeah? Because I would have thought, because this was her first or second time going outside, right? I would have thought that she might have gone to a bush or that she might have, ran out in traffic. I was really worried about that. But no, 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 she stayed right on the path that we walked. Exactly the same path we walked, sprinting all the way into the door. And thankfully, one of my neighbors opened the door at the time, ran right in, ran right to the apartment door, and she sat there. She waited. To be honest, she did pee a little bit, so she did her best. She's still a baby. I'm still a baby. But once I finally got Coco, Coco was also very smart. She ran around the corner but she followed the same path that we always take. So it's very easy to track, to I can't want to say track her, but to figure out where she was. So all I had to do was just follow the path. I followed the path all the way to, she walked up a little bit, was in the parking lot, picked her up from the parking lot, I walked her all the way back inside, and Mabel was just sitting there, terrified, the poor baby, huh? But that was the first and last time that I really I took her out by myself. I'm never gonna do that again. Some cats I think are just inside cats, and that is completely okay. That's completely okay. But all this to say, should cats one day have the ability to speak, have the ability to process thoughts? Because cats do have a short-term memory, from what I understand. They're able to not reflect, but think back to something that happened in the same day. I find sometimes, the two cats just staring off into space. And I know it's staring off into space because woo, I do that a lot. Sometimes too much coffee, yeah. But I find them staring off into space, and from what my vet told me, both of they have two different vets. What our vets told me is that when they stare off into space like that, it's often that they're thinking back to something that happened during the day, something that made them happy, or something that they wish they could go back to, or just something that happened that day. And it's to be honest, it's quite cathartic to have that kind of feeling, because you can't really communicate with your animals. And so knowing that they do that, and what's more, I asked my vet, oh, not my vet, of course, I'm not an animal, but Coco. I asked Coco's vet, what are some ways that I can know if if Coco likes me, if she appreciates me, if she likes me as an owner, if she likes me as a quote unquote cat dad. And the vets told me, I think you're gonna like this. The vet told me that it's the slow blink, when they slowly close their eyes. When they have those moments where they're just resting, they're staring at you like creepers. Creepy. The cats are staring at you, and they start to do that slow closing of the eyes. And that, according to my vet and according to a few sites I've seen online, is a sign that the cats really love you. And that's why I say cathartic, because you do all this work and you can't really communicate with your animals. So how do you know if the animals appreciate what you're doing, if the animals love you, you know? And I don't know, I think as well, the question of empathy with animals is also a big thing. When we talk about running a government, like it's a crazy idea, it's a crazy question I asked earlier. When we talk about running a government, we're talking as well about being able to listen to the people, your constituents, basically, the people that vote you in, the people that you preside over, rule over, for lack of a better term. And it's about listening to these people. It's about, listening to their woes, listening to their needs, not only listening to the council of advice, people council that's around you, but also listening to the needs of the people. Having animals has really helped me through a lot of difficult times. Now, I'm very, very thankful to have not just the two cats, but animals in the past. It feels as if they have a certain empathy. I don't want to say empathy, it might be too strong a word, but they have a certain portion towards understanding your feelings and being there. They'll come and purr on you, or they'll come and lick you if they're a dog, if they're a cat, if they're my cat, honestly. I think this empathy is something that's very, very important as well in politics when we talk about government. So, wow, who would have thought that talking about my cats would lead into this huge discussion about politics and empathy and psychology and interactions with others? But that's sort of the vibe, the mood I'm going for with this podcast. You're not meant to learn anything too specific here. It's more about having access to a full breadth of English, a full arsenal, if I can say that, of English. And that's what I hope to share with you. So, if you like this podcast, if you like this episode, I would love if you would subscribe to my channel. It's completely free. I think, as well, being a language educator, I think that it's very important to leave you with a question. So, my question for you, it's the same question I asked earlier. If your animal ran the government, what would happen? What would be some laws that your animal would make? What are some crazy things your animal would do? I'm looking forward to reading your responses in the comments. If ever you have any questions, I'm always here. It's my business, so I'm always here. And yeah, take care. Have a wonderful day, and thank you again for listening. All right, take care now. Bye.